Morning everyone. Just a quick reminder on your microphones, please turn them on and off after each question, otherwise the audio picks up every noise in the room. We'll start with Matthew.
Morning, Eddie. Have all the players that were away on international duty come back, and are they all okay and fit?
Yeah, we hope so. I think there's a few more checks to make today, but I think everyone, as far as we know, has come back and is in decent shape.
Quite a few of your players had a lot of football for their countries, and the rest of the squad were here training with you. And I think after the Spurs match before the break, you said that some weren't at optimum level of fitness. Do you feel you've made good progress in that regard over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I feel we have. I think it's been productive for us. We gave them a period of rest and then we started our work towards Wolves. Some good training. I've been really pleased. We had very low numbers initially. I think we had, say, 7 players. That was boosted to around 9 midway through. And then, gradually through the week, we've built our numbers up with the players returning.
Can you tell us how the new head of performance, James Bunce, is working with you in that regard when it comes to fitness levels, training and the load that the players have?
Yeah, James is working really well, I have to say. I think he's been hugely impressive since he's come in. He's very passionate, hard-working, involved from the very start of the planning phase of training to the execution. Gives us really detailed analysis afterwards as well. So I think he's been a great addition to the team. Been very positive.
3 matches in, and it's the club's best start to a Premier League season for 13 years. Overall, when you look back on the first block of games, what would be your assessment?
Yeah, very good results. Really pleased with the start we've made in what, as we know, is such a difficult league. Performance-wise, we know we still haven't hit top gear. I think we've done well in different passages of each game, but not consistently through the 90 minutes. That's what we're looking to do. And we're going to have to do, because now we go into a spell where we're playing away from home, some difficult games. So we're preparing for that test.
And while you haven't lost yet, Wolves, your opponents on Sunday, haven't won, but they have had a couple of difficult fixtures, haven't they? Arsenal and Chelsea in there, and then a draw with Forest. What do you make of the way that they've changed this season, because they also lost a couple of big players in the summer?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you can look at the early results and draw conclusions that aren't accurate. I think very tough start for them. I think they played well in their last game against Nottingham Forest. That was a very even game, could have gone either way. And even the games against Chelsea was one of those freak results, because the game was tighter than the scoreline suggests, and Arsenal, they were right in the game as well. So always tough opponents, Wolves. A lot of respect for Gary and the job that he's done there, having knowing him personally. I think he's done a great job.
Thanks, Roy. Is it Nick at Sky Sports?
Yeah, Eddie, you just touched on Gary O'Neill there. You were Portsmouth teammates, weren't you? And there's obviously a cross-reference with different spells in charge of Bournemouth. What do you make of the job he's done so far at Wolves?
Yeah, very good. I mean, I think teammates is a loose term because I was always injured and he was always playing. So I was watching him play. And I admired him as a player. I thought he was very, very good technical player. A lot of respect for him. And it's been great to see his coaching journey, because slightly different to mine, he's been thrust into a very high level of coaching, and he's taken to it superbly well. He's a real thinker of the game, and I sort of knew that as a teammate. Very deep guy, cares about the game, really tactically astute. So we'll be ready for a difficult challenge.
Lewis Hall, man of the match display for England under 21s at the start of the week. Where do you think he's at in terms of his professional development, Eddie? And obviously, does he come into your thoughts on Sunday? Yeah,
he comes into my thoughts, of course. I'm really pleased with his development since he's been with us. I think he's growing and building in confidence all the time. And I think you can see that from his early displays this season. He's playing with an assuredness and a confidence that goes with his technical ability, and his robustness is improving as well. So, very happy that he's gone away and had his first starts for England under 21s and performed really well.
And Sandro Tonali as well, Eddie. Obviously 180 minutes for Italy, but he's only just back from his ban. Fitness-wise, is there any concern there about maybe a bit of early burnout? How are you managing that situation?
Burnout after not playing for so long. Yeah, I mean, I was pleased to see him play. Firstly, I think those games would have done him the world of good, and he's performed well and part of a winning team as well. So great for Sandro. I'm sure he's in a really good place. But it's early steps for him. It's the first few weeks back. We're delighted that he's available.
Just touching back, rewinding briefly, given what happened on transfer deadline day as well, Eddie, the disappointment of not being able to get those marquee signings in. Has there been a further conversation with, fellow staff about what's needed now going forward in terms of, that togetherness and unity, planning for what needs to happen in further windows, and are you all on the same hymn sheet?
Yeah, no discussions yet towards January. No further discussions on anything. It is about unity, and it is about coming together now and making sure we focus on this time at the moment. For me, is all about the games and trying to get results.
Thanks, Nick. Andy?
Morning, Eddie. Good to see you. When you were on your way to the press conference this morning, were you a little bit relieved and pleased that you might not have to talk extensively about transfers for once?
No, it's always a pleasure to come and speak with you about any range of subjects.
Moving on from the transfers, good international break. Nick's just touched upon Sandro Tonali there. His assist for Italy has gone a little bit viral on social media. I'm sure you've seen it. What did you make of it, and how much does it represent the quality of the player that is Sandro Tonali, the fact he's able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've seen before, not that exact piece of skill, but it's typical Sandro. He has that flair and that ability to do things that can make the difference. I have to say it was an outstanding finish as well. It was a great team move. But he has the ability, and I've always said that. He's a player that we absolutely love.
It's good to see Paul Mitchell as well come out and speak to the media. What did you kind of make of it from what you have seen of the interview done with Paul, and how important is it that there is that kind of transparency as well from a sporting director of the club?
Well, I think it's really important that as you say, there is transparency from the club, and the financial situation that we have is not only discussed by me, because that, with all due respect to me, I'm not a numbers and figures guy. I'm a football man, so that isn't my field of speciality, and I don't pretend that it is. So I think it's good that we have different people communicating about those areas.
I remember you said a couple of months ago you needed to be happy, you needed to be free to kind of do the work that you enjoy doing, which is naturally on the coaching page. I wonder kind of how you feel right now as we sit here at Newcastle United.
I feel a little bit hot under these lights, to be honest. No, I feel good. I'm very happy on the training pitch. For me, that's my, that being too soppy, that's my happiest environment. Coaching, helping the players, being with them is what this job is all about. And then, of course, you enter sort of game day and you go into a different headspace. It's about competing and trying to win. But no, I'm enjoying myself.
I know elsewhere you've talked about the international break, the players coming back from international break. How else are Newcastle looking injury-wise? Joe Willock, for example. Bruno obviously came off at 45 for Brazil against Paraguay as well. Yeah, we hope Bruno's okay. No physical ill effects from that game. Joe Willock's improving. Yeah, so we have seen him in training this week, albeit not full training, but he's been with the group, so positive signs for him. Top man. Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Andy. Nisha, BBC.
Morning,
Hi.
Eddie. Kieran Trippier was one of the players that stayed with you during the break,
Yep.
and he, there's a lot of speculation about his future over the summer and even after the window closed domestically. How has he been this week, and how do you see that battle for that right back position with Tino Livramento? Have you got even more of a headache?
No, Kieran's trained really well. I've been pleased. I think he needed a period of intense physical training, which we've given him. Very rare that we have him in these types of occasions. Usually he's away with England, so obviously he's closed that chapter on his career, but that's given him and us an ability now to work with him in different parts of his game. And of course the physical being probably the biggest one for him currently. No, but I've been pleased with him. I think there's battle for places in. We need it in every position, not just the right back position, but that is one that will be intriguing. And of course I'll have to make decisions on that as we go forward.
We've talked in these press conferences lots about the away form. And do you feel any closer to kind of unlocking what that block has been, with these two big away games coming up?
Yeah, I think it's just generally about performances. I know a lot is made of the home and away, and of course we've spoke about it internally because our record last year wasn't what we needed it to be. So it's something we're focusing on, we're trying to address. But for me, it's not so much, I don't think you can focus on where you're playing, it's about the product you produce. And there's been areas of our game that we haven't been good enough, that we're working on. And I think the signs are positive early season, not necessarily, as I said, in terms of our overall performance, but certain aspects of our game, especially our defensive resilience. Early season's been very good. We needed that in the away game against Bournemouth. We're going to need it in these games coming up.
And just finally for me, how's Callum Wilson injury-wise?
Callum is, he hasn't had a setback, but he's a little bit behind where we wanted him to be. We envisaged that he might be training at this moment in preparation for the games ahead. He's not there yet. So he's probably a little bit behind where we hoped he would be.
Sorry, just to follow up, do you have any idea? Is it weeks away? Is it,
Yeah, no, there's no, as I said, there's no injury or re-injury. It's a case of it just doesn't feel like he can push that final part at the moment. So hopefully in the coming weeks he will be, but it's not going to be a long-term problem.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nisha. Thanks, broadcasters. We'll move on to written. We'll do Sundays as well. Just wary of time, so if you don't have to ask 2 and 3 and 4 questions, please don't. And we'll try and squeeze as much as we can with Sundays at the end. We'll start with Damien.
Eddie, there's been a lot of talk about the changes that happened at the club over the summer. Is it the lot of a head coach that you push for as much as you can get, then whatever happens, whether you're pleased or disappointed, you just have to get on with it?
Sorry, I missed the first part of that.
Over a transfer window as a head coach,
right? Yeah, sorry.
Do you have to push for as much as you can possibly get, and then pleased or disappointed, you've just got to get on with it? Is that the lot of the head coach?
I don't think it works like that these days. It may be in a bygone era. It's about collaboration and communication and talking through what we have available, what we can do, and then deciding where to go with the decision making. It's not about trying to squeeze more money, because PSR raises its head and they're the limitations that are upon us, not what someone's willing to spend. So we're in a different situation to where we would be maybe 15, 20 years ago. And it's about communicating which direction you want to go. That's the key thing, and then trying to execute and get the deals done.
And again, amid all the speculation, was there any sense in which you were unsettled at all by what went on, or is that just part of life as a head coach these days?
No, it's part of life. Whether you get a player in or not, that's part of being a manager. I've always had that. There's no guarantees to anything. You can think you're going to get a deal done and not, and you have to get on with it. And I've said all along, the squad we have is a very good squad. I love all the players we have here, and it's about getting the best out of them.
Thanks, Damien. We'll go to Lee Ryder and then Jordan Cronin.
More Neddy.
Right,
just on, the PSR thing again. We've spoke about the Newcastle tax before. Will it get to a point where you just have to kind of like learn to cope with teams putting prices up, because the Man Uniteds and Man Cities of the world, I guess they've got to do that as well if they want to get players through?
Yeah, I think the Newcastle tax was definitely there for us in our first. This is just my personal experience of it. In our first year, where big takeover, big news, we come in for a player and the price doubles. But I don't think that's there anymore, because I think people know the realities of our situation. We know we're not changing the market with what we're doing. We're in line with the market with everybody else. So we definitely walked away from deals early on where we felt there was a Newcastle tax. But it all depends on your conditions and what type of player you're going for. It's certainly something that we have encountered, but I think it's maybe less relevant than it was.
And just on going back to a couple of years ago, obviously getting into Champions League, Newcastle had that brand of intensity that we all enjoyed to an extent. Are you close to getting that back now this season? And do you have to get up to those levels of sharpness again if you want to stay where you are on the table?
Yeah, I think that's the style of play that we want. Here, I think we want to play with a clear plan. We want the players to deliver a lot. We ask a lot of them. I think they're capable of delivering that. I think at our very best, we're a very difficult team to play against. I think we're searching for that feeling, that really good physical feeling in the early weeks of the season. I don't think we've quite seen it on a consistent basis. Some players have executed it, some players maybe haven't yet, but I'm sure they will, and hopefully it will all come together for us.
Thanks, Lee. Jordan?
Hi, Eddie. Can I just check on Emil Kraft? I think he withdrew from the Sweden squad. Is he okay for the weekend?
Yeah, he's been nursing a problem. We have seen him in training. He missed the training sort of towards the back end of last week and the early sessions of this week, but he's joined in the last couple of days, so we're hopefully he'll be okay.
And for good, well, as good as Emil has been, how much have you missed Fabian Schär and that sort of ability on the ball? And has that been part of the reason why you haven't maybe had the possession that you would have wanted in the sort of first opening 4 games?
Yeah, I think definitely Fabian, his ball playing ability is unquestioned, and we have missed that aspect of his game. But I think Emil's done an outstanding job. I mean, I can't compliment him enough, especially when you consider that it's not his first position. He's been playing centre half now for a while. We started that work with him at the sort of back end of last season, where we saw that being a position that he could play and play very well. He did against Manchester United last year in the Carabao Cup, in the game that we won there, and he was magnificent that night. So it's an area that we see Emil maybe developing more as his career goes on with us, but having that dual role is key, as similar to, say, qualities that Lloyd Kelly has, where he can play both positions. But Fabian's unique, and of course we've missed his outstanding qualities.
Just one last one as well. Lewis Miley, how is his recovery going, and when can you expect him to be back?
Yeah, he's doing well. He's back on the grass. It's great to see him with his boots on. So that was the first time, I think, last week. He's on track, I'd say, for the 3 months that he was given initially. I don't see any big change from that currently.
Okay, we've got to Luke, Chris, and then Craig. Yes, please.
Joe Willock, is he back? And what does he bring you as a manager and a team?
Yeah, as I say, he has trained. He hasn't trained fully, but he's trained with us. He's done parts of the session. He's a big player for us. When we started the game against Nottingham Forest, and you think we started electric, Joe scored a great goal. The team looks really good, and then he goes off, and I thought our performance suffered from him exiting the pitch. He brings that energy, that pace into our midfield. Definitely got an eye for goal. He's got a creative streak. And yeah, he's a real energiser as well. He's got a positive outlook on life and football, so we've definitely missed him.
An international break is often a time for a manager to reflect. We've talked a lot in this room about what happened in the summer, the changes at boardroom level, what failed to happen, what did happen in the transfer window. When you sit there now, how are you feeling about things, and are you looking forward rather than back?
Well, it might be an opportunity for you to reflect. It's certainly not necessarily for me. I think for me, my eyes have been on Wolves since the Tottenham game finished. My eyes have been on the training, getting the best out of every single player that we were left with. No part of me sort of looks back to the transfer window and all the stuff that obviously you guys write about on a daily basis, and I understand why. But for me, my job is always about the future and tomorrow. And so transfer-wise, it's January. All those discussions haven't taken place yet, but football-wise, it's on the next game.
Thanks, Luke. Chris?
More Neddy, sorry, just another one on injuries. Just an update on how Sven Botman and Jamal Lascelles are getting along. I know the timescale was somewhere between sort of 6 and 9 months, and I think we're at the early stages of that now. So just when do you expect to see them back? Yeah,
I think both players shown a great attitude to their injuries. Long road ahead for both of them. They're sort of in the middle of that time now. Both seem a lot more positive, and I think it's natural when you first have the injury and you sort of have the operation and you're in the early stages, you can't do a lot. There's a feeling of frustration, and I've been there as an athlete. It's a difficult moment, but when you start to do more and you get the heartbeat going and you get the physical work started, you feel so much better about yourself. They're currently in slightly at different stages. I say Sven's probably a little bit ahead of Jamal just in terms of their rehabs, but both players committed to their work and doing great.
And just on the away form, you mentioned that it's about performance more than anything else. Do you think there has been a mental aspect to that as well? I mean, at St James's Park, obviously the form has almost been consistent, but do you think there has been a potential mental effect of going away from home?
Well, I think it's more the inspiring aspect of St James's Park is so big for us. The environment is so good. It's so weighted in our favour. The supporters have been incredible. That's elevated our levels without a shadow of a doubt. And then you go away, the environment's different. The away support has been incredible. We need to reward that away support with more wins. A lot of that, I think, comes down to defensive performance. If you're not conceding goals and you're in games, I think we have the quality to to take games in any situation. So I think if we defend well first, I think that will give us a great chance.
Thanks, Chris. Go to Craig and then Joe.
Morning, Eddie. In
Morning.
Paul's interview last week, he was very complimentary about you in terms of the coach and the job you've done. Instead, he was looking forward to building a good relationship with you. He also said the transfer strategy he walked into wasn't fit for purpose. You were a big part of that transfer strategy. What did you make of those comments, and do you agree? Was it not fit for purpose?
I think a few things on that. I think very, very proud of every single player that we signed in that period. I think it's very easy to look back at any transfer window and sort of make a judgment on the players that you've signed 3 years down the line. But you have to go back to actually the situation we're in when we're in those moments where you're in the relegation zone and you're trying to recruit players. That's not an easy thing to do. But you're also recruiting not just for the short term, but for the long term. And I think when you look back, I think that work was good because our objective was to stay in the league. So I'm not going to critique every signing, but I'm very, very proud of the body of work that we did and the players that we have now from the legacy of those transfer windows, and we love them to bits. So I think it's about actually, when you're in that moment, the decisions that you made, and I think everyone can hold their heads up very high.
Paul also said that you only played a supporting role this summer, which would give the impression that it was you and others still sort of leading the transfer process. Was that the case?
I don't think it's right for me to sort of make individual comments in reply to Paul's press conference. I don't think that's going to help our current situation. So I think it's best for me to focus on the future.
And just lastly, have you spoken to Paul since last week?
No, I've had no contact from Paul, but I don't think that's unusual. We're got different jobs to do. I'm focusing on the football and the team, and he's obviously focusing on his role.
Thank you.
Joe.
Hi Eddie. Anthony Gordon played again a big role for England. What have you made to his start of the season? Obviously there was speculation surrounding his future. What have you made to his first 4 games with Newcastle this year?
I think Anthony is, well, firstly, I think he's in a great place after the 2 England games. I thought he performed really well. I was watching, totally biased towards him and hoping he had, really good games and impacted. And I know he's very proud to play for his country. So I know that those 2 games would have meant a lot to him, and the trust given to him by the manager was great to see. So I think he'll come back in a great place. And I think he probably needed the games to build his fitness levels up. Again, very difficult summer for him where finished the tournament with England, very minimal training before he's come back to us. So I hope we see a much fitter Anthony in the coming games.
And Gordon is part of the front 3 with Isak and Harvey Barnes as well. They started against Tottenham. Is that one that you can see going forward? Because it's certainly one that supporters have got excited about.
I think we've got good options. I think, of course, that game was bespoke to Tottenham, and so that was a sort of a reshuffle on system and personnel. This game against Wolves will be different, so we'll see what we do there.
Thanks, Joe. Go to Simon Bird and then to Kieran. Simon.
Hi, Eddie. Last week, Paul Mitchell also said that the scouting system wasn't fit for purpose. Why do you think he said that, and did you agree?
I think that's for Paul to answer. I don't know if I can answer for him. The scouting structure was there, and whatever you think about the structures, I thought the results were very good.
From your answers to Craig, it seems that you're kind of unhappy with some of the things that were said last week, and you don't want to respond to them publicly. Will you respond to them privately? Is that possible?
I think you're slightly putting words into my mouth there. I just don't think it's the time or the place to do that.
Yeah. One of the questions some of the fans said, they're reading stuff which says there's a civil war internally within the club. Do you want to respond to that and say that that's not true, or elaborate at all? It does seem there's tension and there's a narrative surrounding the club at the minute which is kind of unsettling.
Well, the civil war stuff, absolutely not in my experience. But I'm cocooned in my work and absolutely focused on the players and the training. And I know you're bored of that answer from me, but that is what I do every single day that I'm here. So I don't involve myself in politics. For me, this job is very much about the players that we have and trying to make the supporters proud every time we play. Everything else around that, I try not to get involved in.
Okay, Kieran?
Morning, Eddie. The chairman was at the game a couple of weeks ago. I was just wondering what you took from the meeting you had with him after the game, and do you feel the ambition's still very much there from the top?
Yeah, it's always very... the chairman's always very engaging. He's a really positive guy, so I think he always wants to try and help affect us in a good way. He's very keen to communicate and help. So yeah, nothing but positives. Of course, helped by the result, and everyone was in a good mood. So good start to the season. So it was very positive.
And some of your biggest signs have actually come from overseas, but with the prices for domestic players now, with the rules you have, do Newcastle have to go more global?
I think it's a mixture. I think it's never about the market, it's always about the player. So we'll always assess, or we have historically always assessed the player first, and then of course has to be attainable, has to be at the right price. But it's never about looking at one market and going, we're going to sign a player from this market only. It's about the positional need, and then trying to identify the right player regardless of where they play. I don't know if that will change in the future, but that's how we've done it.
Thanks, Kieran. We'll go to Louise and then finish with Martin in this section.
Hi, Louise.
Imagine there's something called a bromance barometer, with 10 is you're completely bonded, and 1 you're not that, a bit frosty. Where on the bromance barometer is your relationship with Paul Mitchell?
I don't really understand the fascination with our bromance, but I don't think it has to be that way. I think it has to be a collaboration, and it has to be, sometimes there is moments like I fall out with Jason a lot, if you want to talk about bromances, and that's probably the closest one I've got at the club. But we fall out a lot. We have healthy debate and argument, and that's never been a problem. That's as long as it's respectful and it's for the greater cause, which is always the football club and making sure we try and get positive results. There's no issues with that. But I think the collaboration part is the key thing, and it's got to be teamwork for the ultimate aim.
I mean, in Paul Mitchell's chat with us, he said that he was actually talking to you more than his wife, and talking for an hour every night. So obviously that's ended now.
Has it?
Well, it seemed like you were.
But obviously that's during the height of the transfer window, and that's
not
natural.
Regular.
No, it's definitely not regular. No.
Thanks.
Transfer window related.
Martin to finish.
Hi, Eddie. Without putting words into your mouth, could you have shot much better in terms of age and increasing value when you look at Bruno Guimaraes, Sven Botman, Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak, and potentially the likes of Sandro Tonali and Harvey Barnes?
As I said earlier, I'm very, very proud of those signings, and I've said all along, I think in press conferences, that I don't want to make it about old structure and new structure, but those signings, obviously, I played a huge part in. And I took ownership of all those signings. And I said that in here, even if they're good, bad, I'll take ownership of that, because ultimately I was always the final decision maker on those signings, and I was very proud to sign those players. I think they've been brilliant signings for the where we were and the long-term future of the club, and I really believe in them, and I still do. So you've asked me a question, I'll always try and answer it if I can, openly and honestly. I'd certainly like to find a few more of them if we could.
And there was a lot of work went into those transfer windows, wasn't there, in terms of the immediacy but also the long-term future of the club?
Well, I think that's the balance. I think you can't. Look, we were in a relegation battle, so yes, a couple of those signings were more short-term in that moment because you needed instant results. Relegation was not something we could contemplate. But always in the back of my mind, with every signing I try to make, it's always about, yes, can they impact the team now, but will they impact the team in the right way in the future? And sometimes there's a bigger positional need for the here and now, and sometimes you're buying a player for thinking, well, in a year's time he could turn into be a regular starter for us. So there's loads of things that go into it. It's never as clear or as easy as everyone thinks. But the key thing now is the future and making sure we get future transfer windows right, because ultimately that is the most important thing at any club, because for you to be successful you have to recruit well.
Okay, thanks Martin. Dom, quick one.
Just one, Eddie. On January, when would you expect those discussions and planning to start?
Pretty soon, I imagine. I think you have to be organised. You have to be very thorough in your preparation to make sure you know what you want. And of course we need to see what we can and can't do financially.